All right, let's talk about a bank you've definitely heard of, HSBC. It's a global giant, one of the biggest in the world. But the real story behind that familiar name? Oh, it is way more shocking than you'd think. We're talking drug cartels, secret Swiss bank accounts, and a reputation for being so powerful, they're considered too big to jail.
So that really gets you thinking, right? The whole thing boils down to this one huge question. How does a bank get caught red-handed, helping launder almost $1 billion for drug cartels, and just get away with it? Not only survive, but actually keep on thriving. It's wild.
Okay, so let's dive right into the deep end with probably the most jaw-dropping part of this whole saga. And just to be clear, we are not talking about some simple accounting errors or a bit of mismanagement here. No, this is the story of how HSBC became the go-to bank for some of the most dangerous criminal organizations on the planet. Just look at that number, $881 million. Let that sink in for a second. That's how much drug money, we're talking from Mexican and Colombian cartels, U.S. authorities confirmed HSBC had laundered. They basically washed it clean and pumped it right into the U.S. economy. And get this wasn't some sophisticated high-tech scheme. It was just brazen. I mean, the U.S. Senate found that cartel affiliates were literally walking into HSBC branches in Mexico with so much cash they needed special boxes. Boxes designed specifically to fit through the teller's window. Can you even imagine? And day in, day out, employees just took the money. So how on earth did this happen? Well, the problem was systemic. It was baked right into the culture. HSBC ignored warning after warning from both U.S. and Mexican authorities. In fact, they classified their entire Mexico branch as low risk, which is just absurd, so they could avoid scrutiny. All while shipping $7 billion in physical cash to the U.S. It got so bad that an employee, a guy they hired to fix things, had to secretly become a whistleblower and go to the CIA. Why? Because he realized HSBC management wasn't stopping the crimes, they were helping them happen.
Now you might be thinking, okay, that's one really, really bad scandal. But this wasn't a one-off, not even close. The whole cartel mess was actually part of a much larger pattern of misconduct. And we know this because of a massive data leak that came out of HSBC's private bank in Switzerland. Yeah, more than 100,000. That's how many secret client accounts were exposed in what became known as the Swiss leaks. And the amount of money stashed in those accounts? Over $100 billion in offshore assets, all of it hidden away from tax authorities all over the world. Now, let's be fair for a second. Having an offshore account isn't automatically illegal, right? People use them for legit reasons, like asset protection. But that is not what was happening here. HSBC wasn't just offering standard banking. They were selling a whole menu of illegal services, undeclared black accounts, setting up shell companies, and helping clients make huge cash withdrawals that couldn't be traced. The whole point was to help their wealthy clients systematically break tax laws. And this was a completely deliberate strategy. It was a service they offered. For example, when the EU passed a new law designed specifically to catch tax cheats, what did HSBC do? Comply? Nope. Internal notes showed they had a clear three-step process. First, they'd warn their clients about the new law. Then they'd offer them, and I'm quoting here, different possibilities to get around it. And finally, their bankers would actually create brand new shell companies for the sole purpose of hiding the money. It's just incredible. So you have to ask yourself, how does a bank's culture get to this point? I mean, where does this come from? Well, to really get it, you have to go back. Way back. Because this kind of behavior, as it turns out, is literally written into the bank's DNA. It's been there from the very beginning.
So here's something you might not know. HSBC wasn't founded in London. It was founded in Hong Kong, way back in 1865. And the timing here is everything. This was right after Britain's Opium Wars, when they forced the drug trade on China. The bank was literally created by opium traders specifically to finance their business. And it didn't take long for it to become so powerful that it started printing the local currency in Hong Kong. Think about that. So, from its very first day, the bank's purpose was to serve an illicit trade, one that was propped up by imperial force. Its entire foundation was built on what one source calls the dark side of finance. And that really set a precedent, a pattern of behavior that, as we've seen, has continued right up to the present day.
Okay, so that brings us right back to that big question we started with.
with this long documented history of criminal activity, why is nobody from HSBC in jail? This, right here, is where we get to the heart of the matter. It's a concept you may have heard of, too big to jail. When HSBC executives were finally dragged in front of the US Senate back in 2012, they played their part perfectly. Oh, they were so sorry. They were incredibly contrite, admitted they'd failed, and promised up and down that they would do better. It was a masterclass in putting on a public face of humility and responsibility. So, what happened? What was the big punishment for all this? A fine. A $1.9 billion fine. Now that sounds like a massive number to you and me, right? But for a bank the size of HSBC, that was about equal to just 1 month's profit. A single month. Yeah, one financial analyst put it perfectly. He called it a kind of parking ticket, just a cost of doing business. But even worse, he said it was a ticket given to the wrong people. Because who paid that fine? The shareholders did, not the actual executives who were in charge when all these crimes were happening. And of course, nobody, not a single person, went to jail. So why not? Why no jail time? Well, this is the too big to jail logic. Regulators were genuinely afraid that if they brought a criminal prosecution, the thing that would happen to anyone else, it could cause the entire bank to collapse. And a bank as big and interconnected as HSBC failing, that could have triggered another global financial crisis, just like we saw in 2008. And look, this isn't just some conspiracy theory. We have the smoking gun. This quote you see here, it's from a letter written by George Osborne, who at the time was the UK's top finance minister. He personally wrote to the head of the US Federal Reserve and basically warned him off, arguing that prosecuting HSBC would destabilize the entire global economy. This was direct, high-level political intervention to protect a bank from justice. During those Senate hearings, Senator Elizabeth Warren basically said what everyone was thinking. She asked the regulators, point blank, how many billions of dollars do you have to launder for drug lords before somebody says, we're shutting you down? It's a great question, right? It perfectly captured the public outrage and this incredible double standard we see in the justice system. So what happens next? What does a bank do when it proves to the entire world that it's basically untouchable? Well, HSBC didn't just dust itself off and carry on. No, it pivoted. It made a massive strategic shift, realigning itself from one global superpower to the next. I mean, this shift is really incredible when you think about it. For more than a century, HSBC was basically the financial arm of the British Empire in Asia. But since the handover of Hong Kong in 1997, it's transformed itself. It's now become China's bank to the rest of the world, the essential financial bridge connecting that rising superpower to the West. And in the process, it's made itself completely indispensable to Beijing. Remember 2008 when Western banks were getting massive bailouts? HSBC just raised more money from its investors in Hong Kong. Today, it's a critical partner in China's huge ambition to make the yuan a global currency. So what's the result of all this? You've got a bank that's protected by London on one side and blessed by Beijing on the other. It's created this almost impenetrable shield of influence. And that leaves us with one final, really unsettling question. What we've seen is that HSBC now operates beyond the easy reach of any single country. It has proven time and again that it can use its sheer size and importance to escape the consequences of its own criminal actions. So that's the big question for all of us. When a bank becomes as powerful as a state, who is actually left to regulate it? Who holds it accountable?